Hi folks, this is Jason. Hope you're okay today. It's good to see you. This is a video to any journalist, any academic, any politician out there who's willing to take the time to watch this video. And I just ask you to take it seriously, especially if you are in MI5 or any Secret Service. I would ask you to watch this video and to think about what I'm saying. I believe in democracy, and I believe in the importance of everybody using public space and getting on with each other. So whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you were gay, whether you were Chinese, whether you were Japanese, whether you were a Christian, a Muslim, an atheist or a secularist, all of us have to get on and work together and promote unity within national discourse. And if we do not respect each other, then the political process breaks down. And one of the ways things break down is when we begin to demonize people. And I'm reminded in the time of Rwanda genocide, the demonization of the enemy was cockroaches. One group called another group cockroaches, and it was that word cockroaches, believe it or not, which was at the heart of the demonization of people in Rwanda. And you would see the opposing tribe going round saying, "Where are the cockroaches?" and then they would kill them, massacre them. You see, people have been dehumanized because of the demonization language. Now, a new movement the last 10 years has come, the New Atheist, and they have used demonizing language. They have said, such as Richard Dawkins, and we're going to see video clips of Richard Dawkins, a video clip of Richard Dawkins later, and he is demonizing people of faith as child abusers if they teach their children and name their children as Christian children and teach their children six-day creation. We're going to see a clip of Christopher Hitchens demonizing people of faith as people of faith poison everything. And then we're going to see a clip of Sam Harris, who is saying, and has been saying, that people of faith are dangerous. And then we're going to see a clip of Thunderfoot, an atheist on YouTube, who is constantly demonizing people and religions in his video, which we're going to see. Now, whenever people start to demonize another group, there's a danger of violence on that group. You know, it's like people who are called fags, who are gay and they're called fags or faggots and things like that. That kind of language puts gay people in danger of violence, and there are communities and groups around the world that give gay people demonizing language, and then the gay people experience violence. It's happening in some African countries at the present time. It's even happened in London recently. So we need to stop people from using language of demonization. And tragically, in the West, we've allowed the New Atheists to come in and use extreme demonization of language, and that is preparing Western democracies for violence, because in the next 10 to 20 years people of faith will be so demonized that people will look at people of faith as not being human, just like the tribes in Rwanda said about other tribes they were cockroaches, and then the people saw those tribes who were cockroaches as not being human, and so massacre and genocide ensued. And it's this kind of demonizing language. Christians are child abusers, Christians are poison everything, Christians are violent. These are in major text of the atheist movement. It's that kind of language that will prepare the way for violence and even genocide against Christians in 10 to 20, 30 years' time, if Western academics, Western journalists, Western public servants do not step up to the mark and say, this kind of language is not acceptable in a democracy. I'm not calling to take people's free speech away. Atheists have a right, new atheists have a right to critique religion. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have free speech. All I'm saying is that there are atheists who are normal, average human beings, but then there are new atheists who are constantly using a demonizing rhetoric, and it's subversive and it's dangerous. And if we want to avoid violence on religious people in the next 10 to 20 to 30 years time, we need to challenge this demonizing language, and we need to ask people to respect each other, respect each other's beliefs, respect each other's opinions. Now, throughout this film, what you're going to see is a slice of the Second World War rhetoric. You're going to see clips interspersed with the new atheist, clips of Nazis. Now, I'm not saying the new atheists are going to be Nazis, but what I'm saying is the Nazis used demonizing language for a number of years, 10 to 15 years of demonizing Jewish people, demonizing them with words, and then the words turned into action. And it was because of this demonizing language that Jewish people were not seen as human, and then it led to their genocide. So you might think this film is extreme. That's okay. But if you think it's okay to demonize people of faith, if you think it's okay to demonize Christians, then you're going to be responsible for future violence on Christian people, because they will not be seen as human beings, but they will be seen as people open to attack, because they're not human, because they've been demonized with this demonized language. Dawkins says in his clip in this video, Christians are child abusers. Hitchens says Christian religious people are violent, are poison everything, and Sam Harris says that Christians and religious people are dangerous. And Thunderfoot shows not just a lack of respect, but a sense of demonizing people of faith. And if you think that's acceptable in a Western democracy, then so be it on your head. I have tried to warn people about this new atheism. I have come under threats, I have come under blackmail, and I'm making this last video. This is a press release to the people, the Western academics, and to journalists in the West, and to policymakers in the West, and to YouTube, to sit up and listen. If you want violence to come to religious people in the next 10 to 20, 30 years time, then don't listen to this video. But if you want to protect everybody's rights, atheists and Christians, and if you want to promote unity within your democracies, then watch this video and think about the question: is it right to demonize anybody, even people of faith? Thank you for listening.
Der Völkerstreit oder Hass untereinander, wird gepflegt von ganz bestimmten Interessenten. Es ist eine kleine, wurzellose, internationale Clique, die die Völker gegeneinander hetzt, die nicht will, dass sie zur Ruhe kommen. Es sind das die Menschen, die überall und nirgends zu Hause sind, die nirgends einen Boden haben, auf dem sie gewachsen sind, sondern die heute in Berlin leben, morgen genauso gut in Brüssel sein können, übermorgen in Paris oder wieder in Prag oder in Wien oder in London, und die sich überall zu Hause fühlen. Es sind die einzigen, die wirklich als internationale Elemente anzusprechen sind, weil sie überall ihre Geschäfte betätigen können. Aber das Volk kann ihnen ja nicht nachfolgen. Das Volk ist ja gekettet an seinen Boden, ist ja gekettet an seine Heimat, ist ja gebunden an die Lebensmöglichkeiten seines Staates, der Nation.
Amber Dawn, student here at Randolph-Macon. Thank you for that previous answer. I'll give you a bit of reprieve. I am not challenging you in any way, shape, or form. And I only wrote this down because I know I'd forget what I wanted. As someone coming from a religious family, especially in an area with such a dominant religion and a particular figurehead, how does someone find their own way when leaving is not quite an option?
I didn't quite the last sentence.
How does one find their own way when leaving just yet is not quite an option?
Okay.
First, and I have a small...
I think this is a very serious question, because I've had letters from really quite a lot of people, especially in America, and they say things like, I'm actually an atheist, but I daren't admit it. I'm frightened of my family, I'm frightened of my parents, I'm frightened of my minister. I read an article the other day about a boy in a small town in Texas who didn't want to be confirmed. And the priest said, well, that's okay, you don't have to be confirmed, but you have to write down your reasons for not being confirmed. Why did the boy have to write down his reasons for not being confirmed into that particular church? He didn't have to write down his reasons for not being bar mitzvahed as a Jew. It just so happened that he was born into a Christian family, and therefore the presumption was made that he'd better have a good reason for not being confirmed into the religion of his parents or else. And that's one of the main problems we have, is the assumption that our society makes. Regardless of whether we are religious or not, we all buy into the convention that children belong to the religion of their parents. You will see newspaper articles talking about Christian children and Muslim children and Jewish children, children who may be as young as 3 or 4 years old, and who are therefore obviously much too young to know what their beliefs are about the cosmos and humanity and religion. There is no such thing as a Christian child. There is only a child of Christian parents. Whenever you hear the phrase Christian child, or Muslim child, or Protestant child, or Catholic child, the phrase should grate like fingernails on a blackboard. Just as the feminists have raised our consciousness to phrases like one man, one vote. You can't hear that phrase now without sort of at least wincing slightly, because you realize it should be one person, one vote. At present, we haven't had our consciousness raised about the labeling of children with the religion of their parents. That's just one aspect, and it shows itself, to return to the questioner, it shows itself in a great deal of difficulty that any young person has, indeed any person of any age has, in departing from the religion of their parents, their social group, their grandparents, their uncles and aunts and so on. It might be a bit like getting divorced. I mean, it's sort of something that raises real social problems. There's a magnificent one-woman show by the comic actress Julia Sweeney called Letting Go of God, in which she describes her own journey from Catholic upbringing to the mature and balanced atheist that she is today. And she describes the difficulty of admitting to her family that she had become an atheist. It actually was reported in a newspaper, and her mother read it and screamed down the telephone. And Julia Sweeney, it's very witty, a very funny performance she does. She says that her mother was absolutely horrified. Not believing in God was one thing, but an atheist? I don't know what the answer is. The precedent of gay people is one that one can vaguely bear in mind. I mean, homosexuality is now much, much more accepted in our society than it was when I was young. Homosexuality was actually illegal in Britain up until I think the 1960s, believe it or not. The great British mathematician, one of the two fathers of the modern computer, Alan Turing, who arguably, because of his brilliance in solving the German Enigma codes in the Second World War, did more to win the Second World War than either Churchill or Eisenhower. Alan Turing was arrested for homosexual behavior in the 1950s and was essentially driven to suicide. That has now changed, and now people can be openly gay. The word gay has become a word used with pride rather than with shame. I think that we do have to have a shift in social attitudes to atheism, which will mirror that towards homosexuality. It is, after all, just a view about the cosmos and about various other things, about humanity, about morality. It is really quite extraordinary that somebody's view about such an academic matter as whether there exists a supreme intelligence should reflect upon their the way they're looked at in society, the way their family and their friends look at them. It is quite remarkable that that should be the case. Once again, it's something we've all got to do something about.
Last question, very simple. Is anger a common symptom of a person who is going through the deconditioning process of their parents' religion?
I think you're too close to the microphone.
I said, is anger a common symptom of a person who is going through the deconditioning process of their parents' religion?
Is anger a common symptom of a person who's going through a deconditioning process from their parents' religion? I don't know. It had never occurred to me. Does anybody else have personal... I think sort of fear is probably more common. I mean, fear of what their parents are going to think rather than anger, but I could be wrong. I'm interested in that. If that question is based on personal experience, I'd be interested to hear more. Is that a common experience? Yes. Wow. Anger on the part of the person who is undergoing the deconversion themselves? Yes. Anger against whom or what?
The entire process. Having heard the clergy people, all of the authority figures who pushed this as a norm, which was anathema to the child's reason.
Right. Well, thank you. That's extremely interesting. I've learned something this evening. Thank you.
Kein Laster und keine Sünde, die mir in den 10 Jahren, da ich nun Berliner bin, von meinen Feinden nicht vorgeworfen worden wären. Nur eins hat man mir noch nicht vorgeworfen, dass ich auf den Kopf oder auf den Mund gefallen wäre. Ich persönlich möchte dem Führer dafür danken, dass er mir diese Chance gegeben hat, dass er mich hat schlagen lassen und dass er in den Jahren der Krisen, der Auseinandersetzung auch in der eigenen Partei immer unbeirrt und treu zu uns allen gestanden hat, dass er uns Richtung und Ziel gab und dass er uns mit seiner Bewegung überhaupt wieder einen Lebensinhalt zurückgegeben hat. Unser Tochter Gottes! Heil!
I think one can tell a very great deal about a person or an institution or a society according as to whether it is believed that we, the species, or we, or ourselves as individuals, are present here because of the laws of biology, in particular the laws of evolution by random mutation and natural selection, or whether we're here because of a divine plan. A great deal hinges upon whether or not you subscribe to one or other of those Weltanschauung or worldview. And the subtitle of my book on this subject, which is called God is Not Great, is How Religion Poisons Everything. And sometimes I get taken up on that. People think that I must have said it or put it like that just to get an arresting subtitle as a sort of sales tactic or so forth. They say, what do you mean, really everything? Italian food, tantric sex, chess, what you will. And I say, as a matter of fact, yes, I do mean everything, because I think that the cult of faith and the instinct to worship and to prostrate ourselves, to practice religion, or have it practiced upon us, in other words, is poisonous of everything, because it attacks us in our deepest and most intimate and essential integrity. It says to us, in effect, that we don't have free will, that we don't have the right to decide for ourselves on what is right, or we can't tell a right action. People say to me, not realizing how insulting the question is, how would you have morals if it wasn't for God? How would you know? I pause here just to say, and I think on the campus of a university named for Roger Williams, it'll be readily intelligible why I think that's insulting. One of the reasons, I think, is this. If I'm hearing this from one of the practitioners of organized religion, I'm not going to grant them the assumption that they so readily make in their own favor, that they already know, by being Christian or Muslim or Jewish, more about morality than I do. I mean, shouldn't it be that those who practice organized religion should begin by making a few apologies for themselves on this score? How dare they say that I'm on their turf when we're talking about ethics and morality? It isn't I who mandate things like the mutilation of the genitals of children, for example, which is in all cases a religious commandment. It isn't I who ask for suicide and murder to be fused into one action in the name of God. The suicide-murder community is almost exclusively, not absolutely 100%, but very nearly exclusively a God-fearing and faith-based one. How dare the assumption be made that we can't talk about these things without a license from some kind of church?
Wir sind entschlossen, unser Leben mit allen Mitteln zu verteidigen, ohne Rücksicht darauf, ob die uns umgebende Welt die Notwendigkeit dieses Kampfes einsieht oder nicht. Der totale Krieg ist also das Gebot der Stunde. Die Gefahr, vor der wir stehen, ist riesengroß. Riesengroß müssen deshalb auch die Anstrengungen sein, mit denen wir entgegentreten. Es ist also jetzt die Stunde gekommen, die Glacé-Handschuhe auszuziehen. Müssen wir die Faust bandagieren. Es geht nicht mehr an, das reiche Kriegspotenzial nicht nur unseres eigenen Landes, sondern der uns zur Verfügung stehenden bedeutenden Teile Europas nur flüchtig und an der Oberfläche auszuschöpfen. Es muss ganz zur Ausschöpfung gelangen, und zwar so schnell und so gründlich, als das organisatorisch und sachlich überhaupt nur denkbar ist. Je mehr wir dem Führer an Kraft in die Hand geben, umso vernichtender wird dieser Schlag sein. Es ist also nicht mehr angebracht, unzeitgemäßen Friedensvorstellungen zu huldigen. Das deutsche Volk hat alle Veranlassung, nur an Krieg zu denken. Das trägt nicht zur Verlängerung des Krieges, sondern nur zu seiner Beschleunigung bei. Der totalste und radikalste Krieg ist auch der kürzeste. euch, glaubt ihr mit dem Führer und mit uns an den endgültigen totalen Sieg der deutschen Waffen? Das deutsche Volk wehrt sich gegen die totalen Kriegsmaßnahmen der Regierung. Es will nicht den totalen Krieg, sagen die Engländer, sondern die Kapitulation. Wollt ihr den totalen Krieg? Wollt ihr ihn, wenn nötig, totaler und radikaler, als wir ihn uns überhaupt erst vorstellen können? Seid ihr bereit, mit dem Führer als Phalanx der Heimat hinter der kämpfenden Wehrmacht stehen, diesen Kampf mit wilder Entschlossenheit und unbeirrt durch alle Schicksalsführungen fortzusetzen, bis der Sieg in unseren Händen ist? Entschlossen, dem Führer in der Erkämpfung des Sieges durch dick und dünn und der schwersten persönlichen Belastungen zu folgen. Unseren Feinden das zugerufen, was sie wissen müssen, damit sie sich an Illusionen und falschen Vorstellungen hingeben. Der mächtigste Bundesgenosse, den es auf dieser Welt gibt, das Volk selbst, steht hinter uns und ist entschlossen, mit dem Führer, koste es, was es wolle, und unter Aufnahme auf das schwersten Opfer, den Siegkämpfe zu erstreiten. Von jetzt ab die Parole: Nun, Volk, steh auf und Sturm bricht los!
Well, what astonishes me when I read the newspaper or watch the news is how many problems are the direct result of what people believe about God. I mean, there are days when I open the New York Times where fully half of the stories are, in a way that's unacknowledged by the paper, relate to people's religious convictions. I mentioned the Virginia Tech shooting. I mean, this was the role that religion played in providing a context for this shooting was never really discussed in the media. But I mean, we just hear that the mother happened to be, a devout Christian and schlepped her child from church to church in search of exorcism. I just see continually our attention bound up in these competing ideas about God. At best, this is often just a waste of time, but at worst, it is manufacturing violence and unnecessary conflict and misuses of our resources And what's more, it is very rare that we acknowledge. I mean, now we're beginning to acknowledge the role that Islam is playing in Muslim terrorism, but even that has been very slow to come. I mean, it has been obvious for many, many years, long before September 11th, that a certain style of Muslim infatuation was leading to this kind of jihadi behavior. Because of the respect we accord religious faith, we're very slow to acknowledge its causal role in conflict. Well, I think the biggest challenge as a matter of discourse and debate, and certainly the most frustrating challenge, is what comes from otherwise secular and even non-believing people who are just reluctant to admit how much mad work is being done because of religion in this world. I mean, they either can't believe that people really believe this stuff. You know, so when a suicide bomber blows himself up in a crowd of children, this secular type of person will imagine that wasn't religion. I mean, it had nothing to do with a belief in paradise and 72 virgins. Who could believe that? I mean, this is some kind of psychological aberration, or it's caused by economic desperation or our policies in the region. I mean, it's not a matter of metaphysical beliefs. I think the jury is in on this. I mean, we know that people really do believe these things. They are telling us ad nauseum they believe these things, and I don't think there's any more powerful rhetorical device for emphasis than blowing yourself up or flying a plane into a building. I mean, these people are really willing to die for what they believe, and we know it's not a matter of, I mean, to speak specifically about the Muslim world for a moment, we know it's not a matter of economics and education, because, you know, in this recent plot in the UK, these are all doctors who are aspiring suicide bombers. I mean, how much more education did these doctors need? One was a neurosurgeon. You know, you find me a neurosurgeon suicide bomber, and you tell me the problem is education and economics. It clearly isn't. And the deeper problem, and I think a far more sinister problem, is that it is possible to be well educated, so well educated that you can be a neurosurgeon and still believe that you can get 72 virgins in paradise. And this is made possible by the fact that we have allowed a certain mode of thought, religion, to thrive in a cocoon of this sphere of protection from criticism. It is just taboo to criticize people's religious beliefs.
Die Partei ist Hitler! Hitler aber ist Deutschland! Geht Deutschland! Hitler ist Hitler! Sieg! Sieg!
Männer und Frauen, wir sind soeben Zeugen eines geschichtlichen Vorganges, der sich in dieser Form und in einem solchen Ausmaß bisher noch nicht abgespielt hat. Über 1 Million Menschen haben sich hier versammelt zu einer Kundgebung, an der 115 Millionen Angehörige zweier Völker in heißer Empfindung teilnehmen und die Hunderte von Millionen Menschen der übrigen Welt als mehr oder weniger interessierte Hörer verfolgen. Sieg ein! Es kam die Zeit, da man sich nur dann mit Stolz zum Deutschen bekennen durfte, wenn man die Vergangenheit richtete, sich aber schämen musste, wenn man die Gegenwart bekam. Eine Inflation hat dann unser Volk noch erdulden müssen, die Millionen Menschen und ihre Spargroschen beraubte, alles angestiftet und alles gemacht und alles verantwortet von den Männern des November 1918. abgelehnt, jemals vor dieses Volk hinzutreten und billige Versprechungen geben. Es kann niemand hier gegen mich aufstehen und zeigen, dass ich je gesagt habe, die Aufstieg Deutschlands sei nur eine Frage von wenigen Tagen. Er lobt sich mir zum ersten Mal als unbekannter Einzelner diesen Krieg zu beginnen und sich zu ruhen, wie endlich diese Erscheinung aus dem deutschen Leben beseitigt sein würde.
Oh, isn't she pretty and cute? It's just a shame she's so dumb. Oh, now, Thunderfoot, how can you besmirch a pretty young thing like that? Justify yourself, man. Well, okay. First, what is she wearing on her head? Yeah, this girl thinks that wearing a sheet over her head will show an ancient magical desert spectre that she respects him. But shouldn't we respect her faith and religion? Well, no. Simply no. And I'll tell you why. You see, all cults and religions put up these barriers to make it harder to leave. They have repetitive rituals that socially make it hard to leave the religion, and I have to give it to it, Islam is king when it comes to these barriers. For instance, wear a sheet on your head and it will show an ancient magical desert genie that you respect him. And if you don't, you are instantly recognizable as a social pariah. I mean, come on, why would an all-powerful God really care about what you wear on your head? Or shaving is evil and growing a beard will please the ancient desert magical pixie. And of course, not conforming will make you instantly recognizable as a social pariah. But come on, why would a powerful God actually care what happens to what comes out of the hair follicles on your face? Or get down on your knees 5 times a day. After all, praying 5 times as often might not be any more effective than a prayer convention in Texas praying for rain. But damn, 5 times a day makes it virtually impossible for your typical herding human to escape the claws of the religion. And then, of course, leave Islam and we will kill you.
What is the penalty for leaving the Muslim faith?
To be honest, I cannot back that point up.
Dr. Muqaddam, what is the penalty for apostasy?
Before...
we keep coming down this apostasy.
Well,
give us a quick answer on what is the penalty for apostasy, and then we'll come and do it.
You very well know, if it's an Islamic country, then the Sharia is very clear. Apostasy is dealt with the death penalty.
Thank you, that's all I want to hear.
You know, like that guy in Iran at the moment who is purportedly born a Muslim. So now that he's grown up and says that he's a Christian, this obviously means that under Islamic law, as practiced in an Islamic country, that he should be executed. It's all designed to create social conformity to the religion and to make it harder to leave. So no, I have no respect, none whatsoever, for a woman who embraces the very tools of her social thraldom, no matter how well it's accessorized. To me, putting a sheet over your head to appease some desert spectre commands exactly as much respect as putting a box of ramen noodles down your jockstrap to show the flying spaghetti monster how much you love him. But that's not the only reason this Islamic makeup girl is dumb. She abused the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. She filed DMCAs for her own purposes when Potholer54 had the temerity to draw attention to her scientific illiteracy that she decided to vocally parade on YouTube. Sorry, girl, but that's a big no-no. You choose to inject your scientific illiteracy into this forum.
But first and foremost, I'm a scientist with a first-class honours degree in human biology from a top British university. Yes, I believe that the first human being, our ancestor Adam, peace be upon him, was created by God in heaven.
And now you have no grounds whatsoever to complain when you get called on it. Now, a more compassionate and understanding guy than Potholer54 you will not find. But I'm not Potholer. Indeed, for me, this free and open forum thing is one of those black and white, never compromise type issues.
Never compromise. Not even in the face of Armageddon. That's always been the difference between us, Daniel.
You see, when you filed those DMCAs, you claimed under penalty of perjury, a criminal offence, that you owned the copyright. And when the counter notices were filed and you did not sue, you de facto lost. Indeed, you can be sued for doing it. Further, it also puts you on pretty shaky ground for maintaining a YouTube account, as you claimed that you were making the claim in good faith, and that your account would be terminated if it wasn't. Now, I've got a pretty dim view of commercial makeup bimbos, Islamic or not, who elect to abuse a legal instrument designed for the fiscal protection of copyright because their skin, albeit very heavily chemically treated skin, isn't thick enough to take the mildest of criticisms from the most mild-mannered folks like Potholer54. Further, I have to say that your excuses for abusing the DMCA are risible. Indeed, you might as well have been parroting word for word PCS, and this is how he ended up.
This is an apology from myself to Thunderfoot and other YouTube users. I confirm that the contents of this apology are true and accurate. My username on YouTube is VenomFangAxe. As many of you may know, there has been a dispute between Thunderfoot and myself over the past few weeks. We have resolved that dispute, and as part of the resolution, I am here to express my regret for the misuse of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act to serve takedown notices in relation to a number of Thunderfoot's videos on YouTube.
Now, if you and your staff had just admitted that you got it wrong and that you'd abused the DMCA out of naivety, I could have let this one slide and we could have chalked it up to Allah giving you bad advice because he wasn't up to speed on modern copyright law or something. But that's not what happened. You acted like you'd done nothing wrong, and that's bull, and it sets a lousy precedent. And that's why I'm making this video. So you can file a DMCA against this video in bad faith if you want. And when you lose the counter notice, we will see if YouTube makes good on its promise to terminate the accounts of those who persistently abuse the legal instrument of the DMCA.
I've seen clips of Nazis with their rhetoric, and I just did put those clips in between Hitchens and Dawkins to remind you the dangers of demonizing language. I'm not saying that the atheists are going to be mass murderers. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is they're making the same mistake as the Nazis. The Nazis used demonizing language. They demonized the Jewish people. They demonized gay people. They demonized handicapped people. They made them feel as if they were not human with the demonizing language. And it was that demonizing language that led to genocide of the Jews, gays, and other minority groups in Germany and beyond. It's the same thing that happened in Rwanda. One group was calling another group cockroaches, and it was that kind of stigmata of language that led to people being treated as nothing and as not being human. And so it was okay to kill a child, it was okay to kill somebody in cold blood because they weren't seen as human. The power of language is powerful, and if we do not use it to respect each other but continue to use it to demonize each other, then it's only going to lead to violence in the end. What we should be doing in our democracies is promoting national unity, promoting understanding and dialogue between atheists and Christians, Muslims and Jews, Hindus, whether it be gay or black people or Chinese people or whatever in our nation. We should encourage each other to respect each other and to work together and to understand each other and allow each other free speech and free rights. Now, one of the disturbing things about the new atheists is not only do they continue to use this demonizing language of Christians are child abusers if they teach their children six-day creation, or Christians are child abusers for calling their children Christians, that religious people and Christians are poison everything, and that Christians are potentially dangerous people who are subversive and will be violent or possibly violent, and religious people as well. Not only are they using this kind of language, and it has been accepted within our Western democracies, and they're accepted on university campus, and it's seen as fine and okay when it's not. They are also making a mass effort to influence young people with this rhetoric. So you'll find that there are many channels on YouTube, many channels advocating this hate crime mentality. So we're going to see a clip of the Nazis indoctrinating young people, and it's that same indoctrination of young people that's going on at the present time throughout Western democracies by these new atheists. And it's a serious threat to democracy. You cannot teach young people to demonize other people, and it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to call people child abusers because of the religious faith, or say that they poison everything, or that they're violent people when they're peace-loving people, when they're trying to raise up the kids in the way that they see is right, and they're trying to live their faith in good faith in a democracy. It's just not acceptable. And you, as Western academics and the Western elite, have allowed this to happen, and you need to do something about it. And after this video, I am not getting involved anymore in this political activity. It's too dangerous, and it's far too dangerous for me to get involved anymore. The onus is on you now to take this forward as judges, as politicians, and to do something about it. Okay? I'll put a list after this clip of all the YouTube channels that I think are promoting hatred on YouTube, and promoting hatred and this demonizing understanding of Christianity and religion. And then it's up to you as YouTube and MI5 and CIA and World Press and politicians and academics and policymakers. It's up to you then to go and do something about it, because I can't do anything on my own. Okay? And I'm leaving it alone because it's too dangerous. I've had threats, I've had intimidation, and I'm not going to get involved anymore. I'll leave it to you. Okay.
Sie war schon mit 17 Jahren ganz anders als die anderen waren. Und sie kämpfte für ihre Träume, denn die waren meist in Gefahr. Ich traf sie zum ersten Mal, da demonstrierte sie allein. Gegen irgendwas, von dem sie glaubte, es könnte für die Welt gefährlich sein. Sie trug ihr Plakat durch den Regen, doch alle haben sie nur ausgelacht. Ich ging zu ihr hin und da hat sie mir gesagt, solang mein Herz noch schlägt, mich mein Gefühl noch trägt, solang werd ich bis zum Schluss einfach tun, was ich glaub, dass ich tun muss. Solang mein Herz noch schlägt, geh ich auf meinen Weg, einfach nur geradeaus. Und ich geb niemals auf, solange ich leb, solange mein Herz noch schlägt. Ich habe sie dann irgendwann so gut wie sonst niemand gekannt. Und sie lachte oft unter Tränen, wenn ihr Gefühl im Regen stand. Sie liebte die Menschen so und eines Tages sagte sie, hier in diesem Land braucht mich niemand und hier erfüllt mein Traum sich nie. Ich habe sie nie wieder gesehen, irgendwo hat sich ihre Spur verloren. Ich denk oft an sie und ich hab mir geschworen, solang mein Herz noch schlägt, mich mein Gefühl noch trägt, solang werd ich bis zum Schluss einfach tun, was ich glaub, dass ich tun muss. Solang mein Herz noch schlägt, geh ich auf meinen Weg, einfach nur geradeaus. Und ich geb niemals auf, solange ich leb, solange mein Herz noch schlägt.
I started this video thinking about John Stuart Mill, and again I want to reiterate, I believe in democracy. I believe everybody should have free speech, whoever you are, and I believe we should all be united and work together. I believe Christians and atheists should work together in democracies and be seen as friends and not enemies. I believe that we should love each other, whoever we are, and we should work together. But I repeat this, and it's a serious statement. If you YouTube, and if you as Western democracies continue to allow this new atheism to call Christians child abusers, to call Christians that they poison everything, and to call Christians as people who could potentially be violent, and also to say that could be with Muslims and Jews and anybody else, if you continue to allow, do not oppose and challenge this new atheism with the language, demonizing language, then in the next 10 years to 20 years, people will begin to look at Christians as not human beings. They'll be seen as child abusers, as violent, as poisoning things, poisoning people. And also Muslims will be seen in that way, and Jews will be seen that way. And when society stops seeing religious people as human beings, when society stops seeing Christians as human beings, or Muslims as human beings, or Jews as human beings, then you are setting up a situation where genocide could possibly happen. That happened with the Jews, it happened in Rwanda, and it will happen in the West. Language is a very powerful tool. Let's use language to encourage each other, to show love to one another, to promote unity together, to encourage each other to have free speech, to make people, all atheists and Christians, Muslims and Jews and Hindus, all of us, to feel that we are all loved, respected, and can work together in our democracies. Let's stop using language that demonizes people. Thank you for listening.